2018, and welcome to this year's first episode of the Show People podcast, the show that shines a spotlight on the UK performing arts industry, covering the latest news, industry issues, what to see and do, and of course showcasing theatrical talent whilst always trying to inform, educate and entertain. Hello you gorgeous lot, my name is Andrew Keates, I'm a director and your host. Now today's guest is one of Britain's leading choreographers. He's choreographed and just closed the extraordinary Follies at the National Theatre. He won the Olivier Award for Best Choreographer for Top Hat. He's a Fred Astaire expert, and some may have even seen him on a couple of TV dance shows. Please welcome the gorgeous Mr. Bill Deamer.
Hello.
Welcome to the show, Bill.
Thank you. Hello.
It's lovely to have you here. Coming up on today's show, on the Soapbox, Bill and I will be discussing long-lost musicals and why we think everybody should try and watch them. I'll be tapping out my theatrical tips of what to see this January 2018. There's music from Rosalyn Miller's new musical, Casual Fling, which is currently in development. And of course, I'll be interviewing Bill Deamer all about his life, his career, and setting him the Odd Show People Challenge 2. You're listening to the Show People podcast, Season 2. Thank you for doing the show, Bill.
You're welcome. Great to be here.
Now, listeners may notice it sounds a little bit different to other recordings because Bill's agent, United Agents, very, very kindly have given us the boardroom, so there may be a slightly cavernous echo.
Just a bit.
So first thing to say, congratulations on the enormous success that came with Follies.
Thank you very much. You're truly blessed to be involved in such an amazing production. It really was. The team of Follies, both performers and the creative team, it was put together with such care and such love, and it was done the right way, the way a musical should be done, from the word go.
And when did you start work on Follies? When did you first get that phone call?
Well, I was actually at the airport on the way to Copenhagen to create a new production of Anything Goes.
Right.
And I was lugging lots of heavy luggage onto a conveyor belt at British Airways, and the phone went. So I grabbed it, and it was my agent said, the National have called. They're checking your availability for a musical. I said, what's a musical? I don't know. I said, well, until we know what it is, we can't really say. I arrived at Copenhagen airport and the phone rang and my agent said, it's Follies. Well, I sat down on all the luggage. I couldn't believe it. And I said, yes, I'd love to. And actually, I then got to my apartment in Copenhagen and I had an hour Skype call with Dominic Cook, the director. And I knew that we would get on. And I flew back the following week. And that was it. And then we started. But it was over a year casting. And I spent a year and a half working on it before we went anywhere near it.
And how does that process differ from, say, the more commercial or, so I say, West End projects that you've done?
It's all the same. I mean, what you mustn't think is that commercial is anyway inferior. It's not, because obviously commercial producers have a lot of money and a lot to pay out to get a show on, so they have to get an audience in quick. With the National, because it's in repertoire, you have more time. But the main thing is with any musical is you have to do your homework before you go in there. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You can't make it up on the spot. You can change it, which I often do, but you've got to have a structure to work from. All good musicals need a brilliant director who has a vision, and then the choreographer joins that vision with the designer and the musical director, and from then you work towards a production. So, it was about a year working. I think in all, about 6 days working with Dominic Cook. And then I worked with Dominic Cook and Vicky Mortimer, the designer of Follies. Endless meetings, which were just wonderful, because the thing with Follies is you have to be careful. There's been so many concert versions of it. It's actually a brilliant play.
Yeah.
And everyone knows the songs, you know. Oh, she's going to do Bill Bay Baby in a minute. Our Paris, that would be wonderful, won't it? It's not about, those songs are actually comments on people's lives and how they lived their lives, how they performed. So that was basically it. The basic premise of the show was that those younger ghosts were still in the building and they owned the space, and it was up to these other characters, these other ladies of a certain age, to come back and reclaim the stage. That's in a whole different ballgame.
And I was going to ask, because we've discussed ageism on the Show People podcast before with previous guests. So can you teach an old dog new tricks?
You certainly can.
As I thought.
You certainly can. When they saw the tap number, they all went 5 shades of grey, but that was all right. But they came in 2 weeks before we started the main rehearsal period, and we did tap boot camp. What I absolutely insisted on was that they had to dance, because I don't believe you can do a show about Follies ladies with people just standing there singing these numbers. You have to believe they were Follies girls at some point, you know? And that's why every lady had a younger ghost. Everyone had a story to tell throughout the show. And that's so much more interesting.
And having such a gorgeous company of so much experience, whether that be Melda Staunton to Norma Atala to the endless wonderful people in that company. I mean, I imagine lunchtimes you must have all just sat down and listened to the great anecdotes that must have come pouring out.
There were many. It was such a wonderful time because there were no, believe it or not, there were no egos. Everyone wanted to tell their story. And Philip Quast and Imelda, Janie D, just wonderful.
And so we've obviously just crossed into 2018.
Yes.
What are your New Year's resolutions?
My New Year's resolutions are to always look forward. Always look forward and enjoy life, really. I still, every day, get up, and it may sound corny, but I do. I love what I do. And it's refreshing every day to see new ideas and new things coming out of the woodwork. Because I am so passionate about the Hollywood musicals, that doesn't mean I sit at home with a crochet blanket around my shoulders watching films. It's how you make those films and those musicals accessible today. Everything is moving on. You know, I saw Hamilton last week, which I loved. Very clever, very intelligent, and it does have such a big place in theatre. You know, it's making a new statement and a new way forward. That's great, you know. But I sort of like to think that Top Hat, when I brought that into the West End with Kenny and Wax, the lovely Kenny Wax, and Matthew White, it was a young company and it was a fresh look at it, you know. It was interesting with Top Hat because I was offered the rights to use the choreography from the film.
Surely, as a choreographer, there'd be nothing more boring to do.
Well, absolutely. I said, well, if you want me just to copy the film, you've got the wrong man. You know, and they totally understood that. And it was interesting because the one piece they wanted me to actually keep in was the last section of Cheek to Cheek, which is the last, what we call it, the grand section, the grande section. Ba, 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 ba. Anyway, so I said, okay. So I actually got my associate to do it because I can't copy. It doesn't come out that way. You have to create from your heart and your soul.
I agree.
So we put it in, and then the powers that be and the rights holders came to see it, and they said, we loved Cheek to Cheek. The only thing that doesn't work is that last section.
Case in point.
There you go. And I actually re-choreographed it with Summer Strallen, who was then the Dale Tremont in the show. And that's what we use now. So it's interesting, but I would never, ever do that. You have to make it accessible. You know, we dance slightly different now anyway. Well, a lot different. And our physicality and our physiques are much stronger than they were there. Having said that, Fred was ahead of his time. Incredible.
So it's the first time you've ever been on the Show People podcast.
Yes.
So what I like to do, as any director does, is break you in gently with a little bit of a game.
Okay.
I have your CV in front of me.
Gosh.
You have 60 seconds to remember all of your credits. Try to remember as many as possible, and let's see what you can and can't remember. Bill Deamer, your Show People podcast challenge starts now.
Follies, National Theatre.
Yes.
Top Hat, a West End and National Tour.
Yep.
Evita, World Tour. The Sound of Music, which is a national tour. Strictly Come Dancing, many episodes over 8 years. Do I get double points for that? Oh my goodness. I did a Fred Astaire, his daughter's tribute at the London Palladium.
If there were two sides of me, who would I be?
Sorry, you've lost me.
If I took a magic potion and turned into two men, I would be...
Jekyll and Hyde. Yes, Jekyll and Hyde. Yes, I did, yes. National tour of Cage Aux Folles. New choreography for Love Never Dies. Tap choreography for the new production of Cats at the London Palladium, which is now touring the world.
Not much that was missed out. Admittedly, season 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 million of Strictly Come Dancing, admittedly,
That's right,
which is there.
yeah.
You did the 85th anniversary Sondheim Gala.
I've done several of Stephen's birthday concerts, which were a joy, working with wonderful, wonderful people, yes.
And let's have a look. Babes in Arms at Chichester in
Yes,
2007.
oh my gosh, yes.
The Boyfriend, Regent's Park.
Of course, how can I forget that?
And the Tiller Girls you worked with for ITV.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Were they the original Tiller Girls?
They were, and my God, they could still do it. It was quite extraordinary.
When I was a teenager, I went to a college in Brockenhurst, and there was an old tea room come B&B, and it was run by an old Tiller girl, and it was gorgeous. Me and a group of old queens used to get together for cream tea and look at all these fabulous old pictures of the Tiller girls. Yeah. Well, actually, that must have been hugely useful and influenced the work of Follies, I imagine, knowing those girls.
It's a different style. It's interesting. The Tiller girls are more like the Rockettes.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, and it's precision drilling and kicking. Follies is different. And in Follies, you're going through right from the 20s right through to 70s, actually. Yeah. So you're dealing with lots of different styles. Every one of those Follies girls at the National moved in a different period. There was the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, which is all really, it's actually depicted by the costume and the style.
Yeah.
You know.
And I mean, you come across as the kind of man that would be quite happy to do Sondheim musicals for the rest of his career.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, what is it about Sondheim that lights you up so much as a choreographer?
Well, he writes it how it is. And, I mean, we went to the orchestra call, the first orchestra call for Follies, and it is the most incredible sound.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Tunick was there, orchestrator extraordinaire. And we got to the big mirror routine, and he came up to me and he shook my hand. He said, "I just want to thank you." And I said, "What for?" He said, "Because you're using the original music." And I said, "Well, it ain't broke, so why fix it?"
Absolutely.
You know? And extraordinary music. And then Stephen arrived when we were in the middle of dress rehearsals and previews and teching. And it was hysterical because it was hysterical actually at the time. I kept saying to Dominic, "I'm not happy with Beautiful Girls. It's just not working, is it?" And he said, so we discussed it and how to change it. And I said, "I think I want to try it this way." And Stephen was sitting watching the show. Stephen was sitting watching the technical rehearsal with Jonathan Tunick. And I said to Dom, "Well, we've got time now." He said, "Do you want to do it now?" So I actually restaged the whole of Beautiful Girls with Stephen Sondheim watching. No pressure.
You must have been breathing rather deeply.
Well, you don't even think about it because he actually gives such a good energy and a vibe. Really? He wants it to be good. And his notes are all so intelligent.
What are some of the notes that you have held on to, or things that he might have said that made you go, "Gosh, that only Sondheim could say that"?
Well, there were notes that they're quite private to individual actors and actresses, which I'm listening to because I'm learning all the time. just really competent notes that you don't need to push that because it's actually just there in the music. It's just a statement, so you don't need to push. Just little things that just make so much difference, you know.
And acknowledging the power of a musical language rather than just an accompaniment, as perhaps musical theatre is a little bit guilty of.
Absolutely. I mean, when you saw Lucy and Jessie, which had never been done the way that we do it at the National, Janie D, because she's such an excellent singer-dancer, in fact, my ex-dance partner from years ago, so I know what makes her tick. When he saw it, he said, wow, it's like Rita Hayworth. He said, we've never seen Phyllis dance to that degree. I mean, Janie was dancing like a 25-year-old. I'm so proud of her. Yeah. I mean, it's just incredible to watch. And he absolutely loved that. He really did, because it was actually furthering the story and furthering the plot of Phyllis and the way she goes through the show.
It must be so wonderful to know that you are part, in some way, of the Sondheim legacy of, you know, what many are calling, you know, a defining production of Follies, a game-changing production of Follies, and how wonderful to be a part of that.
Oh, just such an honour. Even now I pinch myself. I knew from day one that it was going to be good, but it became very special.
The last question I'll do on Follies, funny enough, one of my listeners, Drew Baxter, who is a wonderful supporter of one of my companies, Arian Productions, as well as a listener of the show, he was at the final night of Follies. I think he'd seen it 2 or 3 times. He enjoyed it so much. And I got a message from Twitter, because obviously if anybody does have any questions for my guests, please just let me know. And of course, I'll ask. He said he noticed on the final night of Follies, a little tear was shed by yourself. And he asked, is there ever a moment where, as a choreographer, where you're able to switch off as a creative, watching other work?
Never.
No, me neither.
Never. No. It was a very special night. Dominic was sitting in front of me, and we were right up close, which I didn't realise we were going to be. And it was row E, I shall never forget it. And as they're coming on, after 94 performances, I'm thinking, I remember that, I remember how that happened and how, I remember why I did that move there. And it just all came together. It was very emotional.
On my final night, I've said this to other directors and they go, I thought I was the only one. I find myself getting angry with myself on the final night because, especially if you're dealing with, you know, a musical with great drama and you're losing characters or you're having defining moments, on the final night, you end up going, well, that's the last time they're ever going to do that. That's final time. And, okay, he's gone. He's not coming back on. And just this inner rage of why has this got to be over?
Absolutely. Know? It was slightly easier because it's never easy, let's be honest. It's never easy for me anyway. I hate goodbyes anyway. Yeah. We knew that we were going to make the cast album at the end of that week, so we would see each other again there. You know, and we're all hopeful that it will come back into repertoire at the National Theatre. So watch this space.
This is West End producer, and you're listening to the Show People podcast with the sumptuous, the savoury, and the slightly sugary Andrew Keates. Dear.
Thank you, Webb, and congratulations to Olivia Rose David, who won our retweet competition to win a signed copy of Webb's latest book. Congratulations, Olivia, and thank you to Webb and Nick Hearn Books for donating it. It's time for us to get on our soapboxes. Bill, what are we going to be discussing today?
Well, I think we're going to be talking about these wonderful period Hollywood musicals that I think that everyone should have a chance of seeing. Absolutely. To see where it all came from, where it all started.
As a director, whenever I work with particularly new choreographers, because I'm very passionate about encouraging new choreographers and allowing them to actually make shows rather than keeping them in studios and not get a chance to try stuff out, is a lot of people don't realise that so much of musical theatre, similar to film, it references itself so
Absolutely.
often. So you watch The Producers and a Busby Berkeley comes out of somewhere and we all laugh hysterically, not because it's necessarily just a silly mood, but a love letter to a time gone by to go, oh, that's why you're doing it. Or how many times has a director said to you, oh, I think we need a kick line here for comic effect. And you go, well, there might be something better we can do than a kick line, but I know the feeling.
Absolutely.
What, if you were to say the most influential choreographers of that great sort of age, the 30s and the 40s, who would you say people should be looking at first and foremost?
Well, it's the work, obviously, of Astaire and Gene Kelly, Donald O'Connor. Yeah. Incredible work. You know, I mean, we still all love Singing in the Rain. And the reason why, it's a great book, it's great music, and it's great choreography.
Yeah.
And we take that on, and, you know, there's just been a great production of it in Paris.
Stephen
Mear, my dear friend Stephen did. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful. The thing is that those musicals, they are classic examples of why musicals work. Mm. The scene can't go any further, so we go into song, and then from the song we take it into dance. Yeah. You know, and that was the way they did it then. But we can use those as examples and then bring them up to date and use them. Look at Michael Jackson. Yeah. His dancing all came from Astaire.
Yeah.
That's just one really good example, actually. So, I mean, I look at Astaire's work now, you know, and I would love to see a hip-hop choreographer take that and mix it up a bit.
Many recognise you as, you know, Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire expert, indeed, with not only the work you've done, but the passion that you have for the subject. What was it about Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers that gives them that iconic status? What was it that they did?
Pure class and technique.
Yeah.
And the line, you know, I did everything that he did, only backwards in heels, is absolutely true. She was a phenomenal dancer. But then, you know, we were looking only the other day at some work, dance work from Eleanor Powell. Right. They do a wonderful dance routine together, Begin the Begin. I think it's from...
It's Cole Porter's.
Yeah, Begin the Begin. And it's just incredible technique and work. How they get all those beats out, I'll never, ever know. Yes.
Understanding what can be achieved with a look just to the shoulder as an arm extends. And that detail of work before there was, you know, everything we need to know about how to use a camera books, you know, whilst working with these great directors out there.
Absolutely. And it's carrying the style of the piece, which is what it's really all about. It's carrying the style of the piece right through the musical. It's no good doing a wonderful stylised dance routine and then standing like a hod carrier for the rest of the show. It doesn't work that way. You've got to carry it through. And to do that, it's difficult because it can look false. You stand that way, but you have to make it become part of your actual physicality to make it work and take you in and out of a song and a dance, because otherwise it drives me nuts.
Yeah. And if there's anybody listening to the show that are at drama school, for example, or young actors who go, well, you know, I think I've got Easter Parade on DVD in a box set somewhere, what would you say would be, you know, the defining films that everyone should really watch to appreciate that great iconic style that influences your work so much?
There's a film called The Bandwagon, and one of my favourite routines of all time is Dancing in the Dark, and I don't think you will ever. But I've actually choreographed that routine in that way. I just think Fred Astaire and Sid Charisse in that, it's pure class, it's magic. They fall in love. In Top Hat, Isn't This a Lovely Day? It's a love scene. They're falling in love, doing 400 beats to the bar with their feet. It's quite extraordinary.
Because dancers sometimes get quite a... sometimes dancers can be patronised. You know, all you do is dance. Mm. And then sometimes you look at these truly iconic storytellers, like, you know, Eugene Kelly's, your Fred Astaire's, etc. and you just go, wow, when did we start losing respect for the dancer and the art? And instead, you get the terms, oh, she's a twirly, or oh, she's just a chorus girl.
Because it absolutely makes me
my blood
red.
Makes my blood
I can't
boil.
bear it. Well, I won't have it. Yeah. End of. That sounds a bit dramatic, but I won't. I think it's absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah.
The word twirly, what is that? What does that mean? That you've sweated blood for 20-odd years to put a foot on stage. It's very disrespectful.
But also there's this strange belief that because an artist has trained so much in dance, for example, that for some reason their brain wasn't able to do anything else. I mean, take Anna Jane Casey. Great, wonderful. One of the greatest human beings that's ever lived and continues to live. Anna, amazing dancer, but put a bit of Sondheim in her mouth and I promise you'll be weeping by the end.
Absolutely, yeah.
But where do we get this prejudice from? Is it that we like to put people in boxes? Where does it come from?
Yes, we do. The famous pigeonhole. But you see, the thing is that all should have changed with the chorus line, the triple threat. There are triple threats now that can do it all. When I audition dancers, indeed, when I do the first dance call, and I'll show the routine once and then I'll let my associate stand in front and I walk round and I watch to see how these bodies are taking the movement, how they react to it, how they're listening to the music. That's acting. The technique, I can find that out in a couple of seconds, I'll know. But it's actually whether they can adapt to the style, which is, and actually act. And of course, they all have to read now. There are so many of them that have to understudy now, and sing. But there are triple threats now, not jack of all trades, master of none, but triple threats who can really do it.
Well, my old housemate when I was at drama school was Anushka Eaton, for example, who obviously has just done Follies. I mean, Anushka, even at drama school, was always extraordinary because you'd see her dance beautifully and you think, all right, wait for her to sing. Oh, no, voice of an angel, lovely. Oh, and hysterically funny and brilliant. And you just feel so inadequate,
Well,
and that's why Anushka is a very talented, well-working actress and I'm a director that hides in the dark. But
well, I'll tell you about Anushka, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying, she came and sang for Follies at the very beginning, and she was, I think it was 8 months pregnant.
Yeah.
And she sang like a dream, and Dominic Cook said to me, well, she can't dance now. I said, no, let her have the baby and come back. She had the baby and she came back to a dance call. She'd got all the weight off and she'd had a beautiful baby boy.
With James Winter.
That's right. And she came in and she nailed that routine.
Of course she did.
And she was in the show.
Yeah.
So audition, have a baby, come back and dance and got the show.
As you said, pure class.
Absolutely.
I haven't seen Anushka for a while, but I'm delighted we're chatting with her because I must catch up and I keep seeing pictures of babies and things on Facebook. And I don't actually like children or babies, but they have had a beautiful baby, so well done, you two.
Absolutely.
So, listeners, what do you think? Do you think that dancers get a bad rap, or do you think that actually these old shows, they can be condemned to the past? You're more interested in Hamilton. Whatever it is, do let me know, as I'd love to hear from you. You can tweet the show using the handle at ShowPeopleUK, using the hashtag ShowPeoplePodcast, or you can join the Show People Podcast Listeners Forum at facebook.com/ShowPeoplePodcast. Give the page a like and join in the conversation. We're building a little community of theatre makers there, and it would be lovely to hear from any of you.
This is Kumiko Mendel, Artistic Director of Yellow Earth Theatre. You are listening to the Show People Podcast with Andrew Keates.
What was a young Bill Deamer like growing up, and whereabouts did you grow up?
Well, I was born in North London in Palmer's Green, and I was brought up there until I was 12 years old, and then my parents took us out to Hertfordshire, a little place called Turnford, which is between Cheshunt and Broxbourne in Hertfordshire. And that's where I was brought up. And my sisters, I've got 3 sisters, 2 of my sisters went to dance school, and I went along one day and had a look, and I thought, I quite like this.
How old were you about then?
I was 9.
Right.
My father was a brilliant jazz pianist, and he actually did live in Hollywood for quite a few years before he came back and married my mother. So I was brought up on Eddie Cantor and Abbott and Costello and the Andrew sisters, and he would explain to me why that was the way it was, So that's where I think all that started. And then I went to an ordinary secondary modern, did the O-levels and what have you. And while I was in my third year, I did a play. I was in a play called The Miser by Molière. And I played the son, Cléante. And something clicked inside me that I just found it was where I needed to be. And I went to a preparatory drama school and I auditioned for various drama schools, of which I got in at 3. And one of them was a place called the Guildford School of Acting. And I just went for the audition and I thought, I'm home. This is it. And they allowed people to be individual and develop. And I had the most wonderful training. Meanwhile, doing all of that, and during all of that, I was having a dance training.
Well, alongside the time at GSA?
Well, from the time I was 12,
yeah,
I had all my advanced dance exams and what have you. So when I went to GSA, I just carried that even further and further.
Because I went to GSA as well. We're both GSA alumni. I don't know about you. I mean, I was constantly on probation and being reprimanded, and now I'm a lovely alumnus that they're very proud of. But but you would have been... we would have been in the same old buildings like Millmead and
Absolutely.
Bel Airs.
Yes.
And
it's very special.
Yeah.
Very special. It's now part of the university. I'm not sure if that works, but I won't go into that.
No, me neither.
And from there, I was just very lucky. I went straight into shows and what have you. And I was working in rep at the Salisbury Playhouse Theatre.
Yeah.
And the artistic director then was a man called David Horlock, who is no longer with us, God bless him. And he said to me, I think you should choreograph. And I did, and I never looked back. That's where it all started.
So again, how old were you when that piece of information dropped into your...
I was 20s, early 20s.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible. And so I've always been involved in that. But because I trained as an actor, singer, dancer, it was easy to come from it from the acting point of view. And that's why it works now, because if it doesn't mean anything, don't do it.
Yeah. There's a video out there of, I think, you working with a load of lads doing Top Hat on a big hoofing number. And I just thought you would have terrified me if I was a kid out of drama school, because you're so sharp and passionate. Because again, I know lots of choreographers who are obsessed about the placement, but as you said, the passion that you seem to be able to deliver and convey to performers, you make dance matter in your routines.
Well, it does, because it matters to me. This is where I come from. I don't have to play the big choreographer auditions. I've already got the job. Yeah. That's fine. And don't forget, I've been out there. I've been on that line. I know what it's like to stand there in front of a choreographer and have to work your butt off.
Yeah.
So I know that. So I always approach it that we are all in the room together as friends. You don't have to play power games. So therefore, when you get passionate and say, no, I don't want that, I want this and that. No, watch that, it's wrong. No, it comes from your centre. Don't think it's just arms, whatever. If I become passionate, I'm not showing an anger to get it. I'm actually saying, come on, guys, come with me.
Yeah, we can do it.
We can do it,
yeah.
And that's casting. Because if anyone then tries to take advantage of that, then it's wrong. Because then I will go, no. But that doesn't happen.
And when you were at drama school, what were the key lessons that you think have influenced your career today? What were the key things that you learned, or when you were doing those classes, or even from your family? What principles do you think helped you?
I learned, the one thing I did learn was how to construct a song and a dance, and how music really works, how you can take it through from dialogue. And I learnt, and it does come from the acting, and I've developed it. And it does come from the acting, and I've developed it to carry the style through. I keep saying this. It is so important, the style of the piece. If you haven't got that, you cannot do it. You cannot. It won't work in a period piece. Well, in anything, you know. So many people make the mistake of actually just appliquing a style on. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. Anything. Sweet Charity, Oklahoma, Carousel, Cabaret, they all have a style. When Fosse took Cabaret and put it on film, why is it such an iconic picture now? Because Fosse gave it a style. Yeah. And it's so important.
But still informed historically.
Yes.
You know, the ability to understand everything that came from before so he could augment it, so he could change it.
Absolutely. That's a classic example.
And was there any struggles when you were a child, when you were a boy growing up, or when you were training? Was there any obstacles that you had to kind of overcome, or that perhaps anybody else might be experiencing now?
Only self-belief is basically it. I was very lucky. 2 parents who absolutely allowed me to do what I wanted to do and backed me all the way. That was all fine. But in this business, you've got to have self-belief. You've got to believe in yourself and also believe in what you do. So many people copy, I'm doing one of those now, I'm doing one of those. It's a pet hate, actually, of mine when if I'm actually demonstrating a step, it's one of those. One of what? You know, It's not actually, it's what I want at that particular time. There's never one of those.
You never say to a director, you're giving that kind of note.
No.
Exactly.
But normally it's because they think it is a certain step, and it's actually not. It's actually totally different.
It's funny, isn't it, how we will sometimes affect our creative learning process by just trying to establish that we know something without listening or looking
Absolutely.
properly.
There's the word, listen.
Yeah.
Listen and look. It's very important.
And speaking of listening, I will be talking to Bill further about what it was like entering the business and the jobs that he's probably best known for. But before we do that, it is time for me to get my theatrical tips out.
It's my very first theatrical tips, and here they are for January. The Grinning Man. Following its hugely successful premiere at Bristol Old Vic, where it received nightly standing ovations, the critically acclaimed new musical The Grinning Man has transferred to the West End for a limited season only. A strange new act has arrived at the fairground. Who is Grin Payne, and how did he get his hideous smile? Paraded as a freak, then celebrated as a star, only the love of a sightless girl can reveal his terrible secret. The Grinning Man invites you to be seduced by the darkness. Directed by Tom Morris, responsible for the worldwide phenomenon that is Warhorse, The Grinning Man plays at the Trafalgar Studios until the 14th of April 2018. For more information and tickets, visit www.thegrinningmanmusical.com. Ostentatious. Ostentatious is an entirely improvised comedy play in the style of Jane Austen. Join an all-star cast as they create a riotously funny new literary masterpiece based on nothing more than a title suggested by the audience. For one night only, Ostentatious plays at the Piccadilly Theatre on Tuesday the 23rd of January with other performances in the UK. Visit www.ostentatiousimpro.com. And finally, we'd really like to suggest you go and see Network at the National Theatre, the new West End production of Hamilton, or even Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. But let's be honest, you're not going to get tickets anytime soon, and neither will they be cheap. So, we suggest for 2018, your New Year's resolution, be looking into finding what is your local fringe theatre. Find out about the likes of the Finborough, the Park Theatre, Southwark Playhouse, the Old Red Lion. London is literally full to the brim of extraordinary little theatres doing big work. Because who knows, those productions might end up going on to much bigger things. For example, The Play That Goes Wrong, which started at the Old Red Lion Theatre. Just think, when it becomes huge and travels to Broadway or wherever else it ends up, you can be the one who said you saw it first before everyone else said it was cool. And that is my January theatrical tips.
Hello, my dears. You have the ineffable and probably undeserved pleasure of listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keates. This is Stephen Fry wishing you a wonderful listen. Thank you.
So, Bill, I'm looking at some of your earliest jobs. So, as we discussed at the beginning, things like The Boyfriend, where you were nominated for an Olivier for Best Choreography, Babes in Arms in 2007 at Chichester, Follies in Concert at the London Palladium. I mean, these are the mecca of musical theatre venues, and of course to have that first, I noticed listeners, first Olivier Award nomination. What was happening in your life when these successes started to come to fruition, and how did they happen?
It was such a wonderful time. It was like a very fast train I was on, and it just didn't stop. It didn't. In fact, at that time, I had 9 years where I hadn't had a break. I was just going from job to job to job, which is great.
But did you suffer at the same time as well by not giving yourself a break? Or...
No, not at all. Not
Wow.
at all. Not at all. I was loving every moment of it. Regent's Park was just a joy. I'd gone there the year previous to do HMS Pinafore with Ian Talbot, who was the director there. And HMS Pinafore was great fun. And it was my first time at the park. And he said to me, "Bill, would you fancy doing The Boyfriend?" And I said, "Well, I'll do it, but it's one that you've got to get right. You can't send it up. You've got to play it for what it is." Sandy Wilson, the writer, was a great friend of mine for many, many years, God bless him.
Wow.
He gave the rights to the park to do it, and it was just, Paul Farnsworth designed it, and it was just a joy from start to finish. And then he phoned me. I remember him phoning me after it had opened, and he said, "You won't believe it." He said, well done, love. You've got an Olivier nomination." Well, wow. Yeah. It was great. It was an honour to do. And then they brought it back the following year with another cast. It was just great. The Boyfriend is one of those musicals. It's a classic. If you get it right, it's absolutely brilliant. If you try and send it up and you get it wrong, it's a disaster.
It can just be flippant, can't it?
That's
it can
right.
come across as, and often comes from, I think, creative teams who think they understand the superficial side to it, rather than the honesty of what's being said.
Absolutely.
Me and My Girl is another one that I often get seen done so flippantly, because you go, it's not just a group of colleagues. These are real people.
Yes.
The last person that I thought embodied that kind of stylistic approach, but with truth and honesty and that little dusting of star quality was Charlie Stemp, I saw recently. And I just saw an effortless quality about
He's rather good, isn't he?
I just went, where the hell did you boys find him?
He's great.
Because it's been a long time. It's been a long time since I've seen somebody who just... It was just there.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Charlie Stemp is Fred Astaire, but I am saying that Charlie Stemp is a star.
Absolutely. Absolutely he is, yeah. Well, he's going over to Broadway, isn't he, to play Barnaby.
I don't think he's going to be...
I don't think he'll be coming back for a while.
No, I think he's going to do all right, shall we say.
Absolutely. Bless him.
The bastard. Yeah. Now, a very interesting project that comes up, which, of course, was in the papers quite a bit, was Andrew Lloyd Webber's Love Never Dies.
Yes.
Now, of course, you were brought in to... How do we say this tactfully? To re-choreograph? Is that a fair phrase to say?
Yeah.
I mean, what is that like to come in and replace somebody and essentially to change a production? That must have been very difficult.
It was a very difficult one for me because Jerry Mitchell, who choreographed the original, it was a very difficult one for me because Jerry Mitchell, who choreographed the original, is a genius. I'd seen Hairspray 6 times because I think it's one of the greatest musicals of all time. It is just wonderful. We'll go on and we'll talk about that later. And indeed, Legally Blonde. So I was called in. The show didn't work. And so Bill Kenwright actually came in to redirect it. And I restaged it, and it ran for another year. The reviews were great. I don't quite know why it didn't work originally because it's beautiful. There's a beautiful score there, But it began my relationship with Andrew Lloyd Webber, and then I did Evita, which went to the Dominion and now is touring the world. And then, of course, out of the blue, the phone went. I shall never forget it, and it was David Ian. Hello, Billy. Well, anyone who calls me Billy knows me from my acting days, Billy Deamer. And he said, it's David here, David Ian. I said, oh, hello, how are you? He said, fine. He said, we've just had a meeting, Gillian Lynn and Trevor Nunn and Andrew and myself, and we'd like you to come and re-choreograph the Gumby Cat tap routine.
Wow, yeah.
And I said, that's an honour.
Yeah.
Now, what people don't know is I performed in Cabaret for Gillian Lynn, the show Cabaret, starring Wayne Sleep in the West End.
Yeah.
For Gillian Lynn, and she has sort of been my mentor from that point on. She actually said to me, you're a choreographer and you need to grow, and she has supported me all the way. I think she's the most incredible woman. I love her dearly, and she's always supported me. And indeed, in that show was Janie D, which is where we became friends, and then we danced together in the Wayne Sleep Dance Company, and then indeed then Janie came to Salisbury Playhouse with me, and I choreographed a production of A Chorus of Disapproval by Alan Ayckbourn. Yeah. And I played Crispin and she played Linda. The rest is history. So that was all great. And what was the joy was, of course, when I won the award for Top Hat, when I won the Olivier, I was in the same row as Gillian Lynn, who won.
Oh, that's wonderful.
She was 2 in one end of the row and I was 2 in the other end, and she won the Lifetime Achievement Award. And when my name came out, Arlene said the winner is Bill Deamer. Gilly just looked forward and she winked and she just mouthed, I told you. Oh. And I've never forgotten it. As long that will stay with me forever. It was just the most amazing moment.
And what I love about that, Bill, is when you do get these great, stalwart creatives, these iconic creatives that have defined, I think, musical theatre, whether you like it or not. And that clearly she invested in you and has passed something on. And I hope, and I'm sure you will, pass on to other associate choreographers. And over the next, a few decades, all that information just trickling down and encouraging.
Absolutely. I mean, Gillian, watching her break up a number and put it back together again, I learnt so much. Yeah. She really knows what she's doing. And Cats, when I went in and redid the number, I said to her, are you going to watch while I do it? She said, no, that's why I've asked you to do it. Yeah. And she was just incredible, and to have that trust in Dame Gillian Lynn, it's quite a lot. For me, it means a lot.
And moving on to, again, I just adore. What's lovely is reading a CV of so many great classics, which I think, again, and everyone is allowed to like what they like, but I just know the skill that's involved in doing them. It's very different to say, again, I'm not dissing new musical theatre, but there's a great difference between doing a great number and a crowd pleaser compared to the intricacy and the delicacy of understanding the power of movement, not just dance, which again, it gets lost. The movement director role is so frequently being phased out because of, funding, or do you need
Absolutely.
that? The director can do that, or the choreographer can do that. I know you do both. When you are a movement director, how different is that to the role of the choreographer?
Well, it's the way I approach choreography anyway, because it comes from the centre of the body. Yeah. But that it's the same. It's the same because you work with an actor and you gradually develop what they want to say and the way they move, the physicality of it. You don't go in with any preconceived ideas. You've got to know your music. You've got to know the scene. You've got to know the song. And then you develop it that way. They are really, in my eyes, one of the same thing.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting how other people, certainly directors I know who don't do musicals, and they've said, I need a movement director. And I go, I've got a wonderful choreographer you should use. Oh, no, I want a movement director.
Yeah, absolutely.
As if for some reason.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Drives you mad.
I mean, Babes in Arms, that show was originally choreographed by Balanchine
Oh, really?
on Broadway.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then the film was made of it, which is the Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney film, which is totally different to the play, to the musical version. But I mean, there's a 7-minute ballet routine in that.
Blimey.
And when I did it, I introduced Stomp into the show, and also every number is a different style. But again, it's that word style. You introduce it to the piece.
Now, talking about style, there is very few shows as stylish as Evita. I have seen your production. I mean, I know as a director, when it comes to, things like understanding the human psyche and the human condition is something I can happily watch anywhere in life. But of course, with Evita, there is so many culturally stylistic routines involved in that. Again, how do you do your prep? How do you see... Because that, as you said, it's not just one of those. It's such a clever language you use. Again, using musical theatre versus the fact that she is a woman and the empowerment of a woman and the Argentine flavours. I mean, how do you create that language and how do you do that research?
Well, it starts with a brilliant score. It's one of their best.
Yeah.
Mr. Lloyd Webber and Mr. Tim Rice. It's genius writing. It really is genius writing. I have to say, when I was first offered it, I was actually doing another show and I said, I don't think I can do it. And I was taken in to Rug and they played me the score. And I said, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. You don't realise the detail that it's written in and where it takes you. Obviously, Buenos Aires, you go back to the tango and what have you.
Like A New Argentina, which, again, if anybody hasn't seen Bill's production, I defy anybody not wanting to stand. I want to jump up more in A New Argentina than I ever do during Do You Hear the People Sing? Do you know what I mean? There's something about that the fierceness of it.
And it grows so quick. It's so fast.
Yeah.
The information comes at you so quickly, so you can't, it's like a film, you can't miss a frame of it, the way it's written. Yeah, A New Argentina, well, it's her rise to power at the end of the show. And then, of course, the second act opens and there she is in the Dior dress singing Don't Cry For Me, Argentina.
Because Madaleina's obviously gone back out again. And,
absolutely.
And once you see Madeleine, I mean, I know there's the great recordings of Elaine Page doing
absolutely.
it. But Madeleine Alberto is just... Yeah, there's something
There's
extraordinary.
rather a good voice there.
She'll do.
and she's a great actress.
Well, which is what I love. And again, it's what you said, and maybe it's why we're quite similar, maybe, in that the moment you start treating a musical like a musical rather than a play is when you start, I think, messing things up. Yeah. Or you're doing the wrong kind of musical.
Absolutely.
So again, zipping through, a tiny show comes along. Some people might have heard of it, Top Hat. So... Who had the idea to do the stage production of Top Hat? Did that originally come from Kenny?
Absolutely.
It did.
Quite often, in the past, I'd had phone calls saying, we're going to do a Fred Astaire musical, we're going to do it, we'd love you to be involved. And then the phone rang and it was Kenny Wax and he said, I want to do Top Hat, would you like to come in and see me? And I went in and saw him. And the Astaire thing for me... actually putting it all together and putting it on stage. I did in 2002, in my really early days, I did a tribute at the London Palladium, Fred Astaire, his daughter's tribute. And in that tribute was Anne Miller and Sid Charisse and Jane Powell and Robert Wagner came over and Tony Martin. And
literally Hollywood stars.
Absolutely. And I was, this was big, and I had 24 dancers. And it was extraordinary. I arrived we'd had 2 weeks rehearsals and I arrived on the Palladium stage that morning and all these stars weren't called till the afternoon. And I walked in at 9 o'clock. They were all sitting in the front row.
Pros.
We've come to support you and what have you, and the Anne Miller stories, which I won't repeat on air, were just quite wonderful. What a lady, what a character. So that was my first introduction to the Astaire and it's just sort of, I thought, I really do like this. I really do get him. And then Kenny rang and he said, would you like to come in? And I went and met him. And he said, well, we'd like you to do it. And I said, who's directing? And he said, Matthew White. I said, perfect. And he said, we just have to check with the estate and with indeed Arthur Astaire, Fred's daughter. And they gave it their blessing, and that was it. And then it was actually, I spent a year on my own working on the score and working on the music because it was a new piece. And where'd you start? Where'd you start? You know?
Well, Julie Andrews says at the very beginning.
A very good place to start.
And you can stay there for several years and still not know what to do.
And then we opened in Milton Keynes, and we knew we were onto a winner. You know, we knew we were onto a winner because, I mean, they were standing before the end. But one of the numbers that closed Act 1 was wrong. It didn't work. And we needed another 2 numbers for Dale because the Ginger Rogers character, Dale Tremont, didn't have a song, which he doesn't in the film, but it just makes no sense. So, and we needed an opening number.
And who was responsible for the book? Because that was the big change.
Matthew White.
So Matthew did do the book. I thought he did. I didn't want to say, Matthew did the book, and you look at me and go, no. I think that made an enormous difference.
Absolutely, it did. And he's such a caring man, and he's such an intelligent man. And we'd sit round, and we were offered the Irving Berlin catalogue, obviously, and we needed an opening number. And I said, we really need putting on the Ritz, don't we?
Yeah.
We'll never get it, will we? You'll never get it. And we went to the Irving Berlin estate, and we sat round a table, and I danced the routine.
What, in a boardroom?
I actually danced and said it'll be like this, and Chris Walker, our orchestrator, said, and we'll do this here and we'll do that. And then Matt did a big sell, and then they said, okay, you can have it. So that was a bit of a moment. And then we asked for You're Easy to Dance With for Dale, and we got that. I mean, it was just you couldn't have planned it any better. It just happened. And then we found out we were coming into London, and the rest is history, really.
Because, Bill, what's so funny, the way you just described that, you sound like a cross between the great stories that I dine on of, Rodgers and Hammerstein or Rodgers and Hart, and at the same time, the group of vagabonds in Merrily We Roll Along, round a table just trying to do this great show. Absolutely. And convincing the big guys to say yes.
And you know why? Because it's true.
Yeah.
And I stood outside the door with Matt White, and I said, oh, Matt, we've got to get this number. We've got to get this number. And we did.
The person that I felt most sorry for was your producer, Kenny Wax, in that you cleaned up at the Oliviers. You had reminded audiences just how great these lost musicals are. And then Stephen Ward, the musical, comes and knocks out Top Hat, which in my opinion, and again, being a director first, I just felt so sorry for Kenny's biggest hit, who was grafted and had some flops, you probably wouldn't mind me saying, but this was his big hit. The cast knew it was great, and there you were essentially, what appeared to be homeless. What did you do for morale? How did you feel when that news came in?
Well, it was very sad, but Kenny's hands were tied, and my heart went out to Kenny, a wonderful producer, and he listens. And so the saving grace was that it was coming off and it was going to do a national tour, which it did, and it cleaned up. Yeah. It was sold out in every venue. So I know that the money was made back, for investors. And it was a joy on tour. And indeed, I can tell you that Matthew and I are doing a production, the West End production in Tokyo.
Amazing.
Yeah, we went out and cast it in the middle of last year because in Japan they cast way ahead. And we're doing the full West End production with a Japanese cast. It opens November this year. We go out the end of September. We go out and take it, but they're going to actually do a replica production. So the West End production is still alive and going, and just watch this space. That's all I'll say, because it's certainly not.
I don't doubt in 20 years' time, I'll see you, I'll be saying, what are you up to? Oh, another production of Top Hat's going to Russia, or whatever. So again, I could easily talk through many other credits, such as things like The Sound of Music. Obviously, we've already discussed Cats.
One of my favourite shows, Cage Aux Folles. Just tell me a little bit about your process on Le Cage.
It was an interesting process because I'd never done drag or anything like that before, and so I had to really research it.
A nice London lad from Parsons Green.
Well, there you go. There you go. It's actually how drag queens perform and how they do things. It's also, I wanted to make it look quite glamorous because I think that's what it's all about, a Saint-Tropez, drag show. It's got to have some kind of glamour to it. And what I didn't realise until I read the script and put it together with the music, it's a very, very clever show.
It's hard, it's gut-wrenching.
It's absolute, it's a love story, that was a lovely discovery. I mean, you can see it on the paper, on the page when you read it, but I actually looked at it and went, wow. And we started to do it, and you actually realise, and you've got people like Marty Webb giving their numbers and all of that. My gosh, what a voice still, Mm-hmm. And I found that very difficult to cast, because, again, I wasn't going to do drag show choreography. I was going to do musical theatre choreography. And, of course, it has a tap number in 3-inch heels at the beginning. Well, I'm afraid that's what you've got to do. That's part of the job. And they did it.
The obvious numbers like I am what I am, etc. Obviously great. But the lyric that still rings through my heart all the time is, how often is someone concerned with the tiniest threads of your life? And you'll just, I defy anybody with a heart not to just go, oh.
Yeah, it is. It's heart-wrenching. It really is. And it got such a great response. It really did. It was a very successful tour.
Hi, I'm Alex from Theatre Accounts. We're a friendly team of accountants who work with clients in the entertainment industry, and it's our mission to make tax simple. We offer a no-jargon, simple approach with no hidden fees. Here's my tax tip of the week. We're counting down the days in the office until the tax return deadline, and you need to make sure that you submit everything to HMRC by the end of the month, or you could face a nasty fine of at least £100. This can increase to over £1,500 the longer that you leave it. HMRC also charge interest on any tax that is paid late. Don't forget, in future years, your tax return can actually be filed as soon as the 5th of April has passed. This means you will know well in advance what tax you have to pay the following January, or if you're due a refund, you will receive this a lot earlier. We hear from a lot of people who think that they can only file their tax return in January, and this is definitely not true. You don't have to wait until January, so how about that for a New Year's resolution? Hopefully that super quick tip was helpful. If you have any requests for any future podcast tips, or if you need any help with your tax return, please get in touch. You can contact us via our website, which is www.theatreaccounts.co.uk, and you can also follow us on Twitter @theatreaccounts. If you are a new client to us and you need help, we'll even give you a £50 discount off your first year fee with us. Just quote the Show People podcast.
Well, it's time for the Show People platform, the part of the show where we are committed to giving as much exposure to possible new artists, playwrights and composers. And today's platform is given to Rosalyn Miller. Rosalyn is a composer, lyricist, singer, songwriter, piano and ukulele player based in London. She's also a GP, so she's a woman of many skills. She's a member of BML, which is Book Music Lyrics, learning the craft of musical theatre writing, and is currently working on her first musical with her writing partner Fiona Ho. She's recently been performing at Crazy Cocks and trying to get her work out there. Miller and Ho are currently developing Casual Fling, the musical, and here's a little bit of the blurb. Sunday night. Time to snuggle up on the sofa with a cup of tea, watch telly and relax. But not for Carly. She's on the hunt for a soulmate. She's off to North London's premier speed dating event. She has the hope that maybe this night she'll finally meet someone. Someone lovely, someone kind, someone who's nice, good looking and not gay. Someone who has a job, and of course, someone who's Jewish. Carly discovers that her ex is at the event she attends. The evening takes a turn for the worse, and she is forced to confront the choices she's made and finally discover what's truly important. With a contemporary pop score, Casual Fling is set in a world of Jewish speed dating, about looking for love and ultimately finding yourself. Here's a song, Linger, performed by the composer Rosalyn Miller from Casual Fling, the musical.
when the lights go dim and the music's soft and low. When it's time for bed, time for all the guests to go, you linger. You're standing by the open door. You linger. But tell me, is there something more? If I say, please stay, would you hold me in your arms forever? If I say, please stay, would you swear that it meant something to you? But I say nothing. And the silence stretches out so hard to fill, and I don't know what there is between us two. You linger, but am I seeing something true? You linger, tell me what I'm meant to do. If I say, please stay, would you hold me in your arms forever? If I say, please stay, would you swear that it meant something to you? But I say nothing. Would you give me a sign? Come on and open your mind that I'm a little bit terrified. Come on and give us a chance before this moment has passed. Can't you see the look in my eyes? Then you say, can I stay? I wanna hold you in my arms forever. Then you say, can I stay? Can't you feel just what I'm feeling for you? Then I'd say, okay. I'd say, please stay.
That's Linger from Casual Fling the Musical by Rosalyn Miller and Fiona Ho. If you'd like to find out more about Casual Fling the Musical or Rosalyn or Fiona's work, please just visit www.rosalynmusic.com, and you can find the links to Rosalyn's website on the Show People show notes.
Hello, this is Kim Ismay, and you're listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keates, and I hope you're having a wickedly interesting time.
Ah, another pro. So, Bill, what's next?
Well, there's two projects that I actually I haven't signed for them yet, so it's a bit difficult. As I say, we've got Top Hat in Tokyo, and Let's Just Watch This Space with Follies, because I'm having to keep time free for that. And I'm working with Dominic Cook on the revival of another big musical, but I cannot at this stage. I'm sorry to say, I can't tell you what it is.
I can hear hundreds of people leaning closer to their stereo, longing to find out.
Yes,
but
I will let you know as soon as I've actually signed for it, but I have signed a confidentiality agreement until certain people are cast in it. So that's all very exciting. And I'm working on two other new projects, two new musicals for 2019. It's all a bit Vera vague, isn't it? But but that's the way it is at the moment, you know. But what I am doing now, I'm going to take about 4 weeks off.
That's a very good idea.
As from next week, that's me. I just want to get away and have a little break and then come back, and then I start auditions. I have to go over to Tokyo to cast 2 more members of the Top Hat company, and then we're ready to go. So it's all good. My hobby, which not many people know, is that I breed and I judge Dalmatians. So I'm a member of the Kennel Club, Great Britain. So I'm going to do some dog judging this year as well, which I absolutely love, and try and fit that in.
Oh. Has any Dalmatians ever made it into any productions?
No. There was the film 101 Dalmatians, but I sort of like to keep my dogs away from.
I mean, I was just thinking for future mortgages. The National. You've just worked with the National. They've just done Pinocchio, 101 Dalmatians the musical.
You never know.
Might get 2 roles filled, with the same man.
I think one Dalmatian is enough to handle. I can assure you.
So I'm going to jump to the part of the show where I ask you what some of your favourite things are. So firstly, Bill, if I stranded you on tour in Whitley Bay, you're allowed an album, a film, a book, a play, a musical, and a luxury item. So let's start. What would be the album you would take with you?
I think it would be West Side Story.
Mm-hmm. Mm. It's pretty hard to find a finer score.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you put a foot wrong.
So if you're taking the album of West Side Story, what would be the film? Is that the DVD of West Side Story?
What would be my film? Gosh, you put me on the spot, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
I think it would be, you're going to laugh, I think it would be Calamity Jane.
Oh, I'm not going to laugh. I'm going to agree.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous film.
It's so clean. It's clean. Doris Day is just so specifically clean and good. Yeah.
And a star.
Yeah.
That seems to be the one thing we really have in common, is just these great stars. And what would be the book?
Far from the Madding Crowd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I adore it.
Yeah. What is it particularly about that title that makes you, that really brings you
It's a proper
to life?
story. It's just a story. It's just a great story with real characters, They recently did a remake of it, a film of it, which was just excellent, just excellent. And I know what's going to happen, but I still love it. I still read. It just draws me in.
I have a few books that, even though I've read them 3 or 4 times, will quite happily take them on holiday, or quite happily sit in my garden and go, oh, it's like an old friend. Is it the same thing you have with that?
Yeah. I've got a dog-eared copy that I treasure. Yeah.
And what would be the play?
Would be something like probably one of the Chekhovs, Cherry Orchard.
Bit of depth.
Yeah.
Lots.
I could read plays like Noises Off, but it's so physical and it's so, and for comedy, it's got to have a physicality to it. No, I know it would be. Yeah, the Cherry Orchard.
And what would be the musical?
What would be my musical? I would probably go for Hairspray.
Yeah.
I just think it's such a clever piece because it's such a serious subject they're dealing with. Yeah. And it's done so cleverly. And
it's not patronising.
Absolutely.
It's not preachy. It's a joyous celebration. It's very clever.
Every time I watch it, I go, yeah, I like it. I get it.
And whenever it finishes as well, you do often go, I want to go back there. And you shouldn't want to go back to that but it's the ideals that are held.
Absolutely.
You just want to sort of pry open the theatre doors and shine that light into the rest of the world and go, have a bit of this.
Yes, that's right.
And what would be your luxury item?
My luxury item would be, could I have my phone?
I mean, you could, but you're going to leave the Olivier Awards behind just for the sake of the phone? Although you can only have one, so yeah.
What should I take with me?
Dalmatian?
I'd take my Dalmatian.
Yeah, I thought so.
No, I think a luxury item, I've got a wing collar that was worn by Fred Astaire that was given to me. when I did, and that's one of my treasured items.
Who gave you that?
A friend, someone who should be nameless,
Right.
because they said if they ever find out,
Yeah.
I would be lynched.
What a wonderful thing to own.
Yeah.
I'm a big sci-fi fan, believe it or not. And I have a few props from various old sci-fi films, which some people will look at and go, "You've got the whatever I've got."
Yeah.
And other people go, "Oh, it's just a bit of resin." You know, but isn't it amazing how we can imbue these amazing historic objects?
Absolutely, yeah. That was, yeah.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Hi, this is David Bedella, and you're listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keates.
It's time for another Show People challenge. Bill Deamer, you must answer as many questions as quickly as possible within 5 minutes. You are allowed 3 passes, so use them wisely because you never know what I might ask or what listeners might have asked. Bill Deamer, let's play Funny 5 Minutes.
Oh my God.
Bill Deamer, what is your worst habit?
Biting my nails.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Do you have a favourite sport?
Yes.
What is it?
It is badminton.
If someone narrated your life, who would it be?
Imelda Staunton.
Good choice. What is the strangest place you've ever had a wee?
A bus stop in Berlin.
What's your favourite television show right now?
Dancing on Ice.
And what's the filthiest joke you know?
Pass.
That's a pass. Who was your teenage crush?
Teenage crush. Oh my God. Pass.
That's another pass. 1 pass remaining. Have you ever been abducted by aliens?
No.
Would you rather fight 1 horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
100 duck-sized horses.
And what would be the reason for that?
Brawn against brawn.
Would you like to swim with sharks?
No, thank you.
If one song could sum your life up, what would it be?
I did it my way.
If you were to order a pizza, what would your order be?
A pepperoni.
Pepperoni. If you had to eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
It would be a seafood salad.
What is the most unusual thing you've ever had in your mouth?
A raw turtle, yeah.
Raw turtle?
Yeah, I was abroad, yeah, and I spat it out, yeah.
As in a food? It just didn't happen accidentally?
No.
A really awkward game of badminton went wrong?
No, it was a food. No, I said, what is this? No, thank you. Yeah.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Yes.
Have you ever seen a ghost?
Yes.
Wait, this is where we pause. You've seen a ghost?
Yes.
You're one of the few Show People podcast people that genuinely has seen a ghost. So what's the ghost story?
I absolutely did. I was staying with a dear friend of mine who was at drama school with me, and he and his parents, they had a great big house in Rayleigh in Essex, built in the 18th century, a real beautiful house with grounds. And I went to sleep. I went into the guest bedroom that night and was woken up freezing cold, and I literally saw, I really did, this little girl at the end of the bed crying. And I asked her to go away. I said, "You're frightening me, go away." And she went, and in the morning I said to Tony, there was a girl in my room. He went, "Oh, she's back again." And she actually died in that room. No. Yeah.
Right, back to the quiz. Sondheim or Lloyd Webber?
Sondheim.
Sondheim. How do you sum Donald Trump up in one word?
Naff.
That's not the word you meant at all. How do you like your eggs in the morning?
Sunny side up.
Are you an early riser or a night owl?
I'm an early riser.
Do you think Doctor Who is cool?
Yes.
Do you think a swan could actually break someone's arm?
Well, I'm told I believed it, but I don't think it can.
I don't think they can. I mean, if you really think about it, you against a swan, swan's got no chance.
Yeah.
Daddy or chips?
Chips.
Chips. What's the meaning of life?
What's the meaning of life? Love every moment.
What is your favourite word?
My favourite, happy.
If you could visit any point in history, when would it be and why?
Without doubt, the 30s in Hollywood. Yep.
What's the lie about you you've always wanted to clear up?
that I don't just do period musicals.
If you were to jump into a swimming pool filled with something, what would it be?
Oh, jelly. Oh, lovely.
Perfect timing. Well, sadly, that is all the time that we have left. So, firstly, before we go, thank you to Rosalyn Miller and Fiona Ho for sharing their music from Casual Fling, the musical. But of course, it would be very, very rude and foolish not to thank my wonderful guest for sharing such a great insight into his life. Please go mad for the wonderful, the marvellous Mr. Bill Deamer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for talking to me and arranging, this meeting. It's so great.
My pleasure.
Bill, how can people keep up to date with all that you're up to?
My website, which is billdeamer.com.
And what's your Twitter handle?
Bill Deamer, at Bill Deamer.
Amazing. So do give Bill a quick follow. This podcast is produced by Arian Productions Limited, dedicated to giving opportunities to theatre makers. If you can support the work we do, please become a friend of Arian Productions by making a donation to help fund this free podcast, as well as help us create more shows, masterclasses and work in 2018 for actors. If you can help, please just visit www.arian-productions.com/showpeople. You can also help by giving us an iTunes review, as that really helps the magical Apple algorithms to help us reach more people passionate about the performing arts and their craft. Lastly, if you have any comments, ideas, or things you want to send into the show, you can reach me on Twitter at Andrew Keates. You can send me an email to info@arian-productions.com, or like the Show People listeners page at facebook.com/showpeoplepodcast, where you can join the Show People listeners forum and share your stories there. Thank you for listening. We have another year ahead of us of the Show People podcast. We couldn't do it without you. And please don't forget to give generously. You're listening to the Show People podcast.
It's all a bit Vera vague, isn't it?